Welcome to Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting informed, breaking down complex topics, surprising facts, and really compelling stories into knowledge you can use. Have you ever felt like you're just wading through intense change, trying to figure out what's, genuinely new and lasting versus, well, what's just disruption, noise? It's something we all grapple with, right? In our lives, jobs, the world. And speaking of change, let's zone in on September 5th, 2025. There's some interesting cosmic stuff happening then, according to our first source, Tarot by High C. The moon's in Aquarius that day, which is usually seen as pretty good for logic, innovation, group stuff, brainstorming, upgrading systems, fixing tech issues, pushing for humanitarian causes. It tends to favor a clear-headed approach, less getting tangled in emotions. You might feel more independent or really want to geek out on some progressive ideas. It's a good moment, maybe, to think which changes stick, which are just disruptive. And that kind of sets the stage, maybe gives us a framework for what we're digging into next. Because layered onto this focused, sort of logical vibe, our sources point to something much deeper, more profound, happening right alongside it. This is our main topic today, Pluto. It's entering what astrologers call an out-of-bounds phase. We're drawing from Tarot by High C again, and also these really vivid bits from Pluto Unbound, the out-of-bounds wars. So our mission today, that first, let's unpack what outer bounds actually means astrologically. Then we'll dive into this, well, unsettling but maybe transformative story of what happens when Pluto gets truly unleashed. Think of this as your guide to understanding the potential for, well, distortion, big power shifts, fundamental change when planets stray off their usual paths.
Yeah, and starting with that definition is key. Out of bounds. It sounds dramatic, and it kind of is, astrologically. Technically, a planet's out of bounds when it goes more than 23 degrees and 32 minutes north or south of the ecliptic. The ecliptic, just for context, is basically the sun's path as we see it from Earth. It's the main highway, you could say, that the planets usually stick to. So out of bounds means it's literally veering off that main road.
Off-road, okay. So right away, that sounds like something unexpected is going on. But does unleashed always mean like chaos? Or could it just be energy going in a new direction? Could there be anything positive in that, even if it's so?
That's a really good question. It gets right to the core of it. Astrologically, yeah, the immediate sense is unleashed. It acts like a wild card. Its energies tend to show up in ways the sources call exaggerated or unexpected. It's not playing by the usual rules of the ecliptic anymore, so its influence becomes less conventional, harder to predict, whether that's good or bad. Well, that often depends on how we react to it, right? It's definitely a break from the norm, opens up possibilities that just weren't there before.
And for Pluto, wow. That sounds intense. Remind us again, what does Pluto usually represent in astrology? How might being a wild card change that?
Pluto's themes are deep, really transformative. It's the planet that teaches about power, its use, its abuse, and it guides those big processes of detoxification, regeneration. Think death and rebirth, really.
Yeah.
Clearing out the old to make space for the totally new. So when Pluto goes out of bounds, gets unleashed, those themes don't just get louder, they get distorted, pushed to extremes, often uncomfortable ones. Imagine power struggles becoming existential, where the very idea of authority breaks down, or regeneration creating, well, alien forms, not just renewed ones. The normal rules for how these transformations happen, they just kind of don't apply anymore.
A wild card Pluto,
Mm-hmm.
focused on power, rebirth, and now distortion. Yeah, that sounds like it could reshape pretty much everything. And this isn't just a quick thing, is it? What's the time scale here? Does that long duration make it even more impactful?
Oh, it's definitely not quick. The sources map out a pretty significant timeline. Pluto's actually going to be moving in and out of bounds to the south for the next 10 years, from 2025 right through to 2035. That's a whole decade of this influence. Now, this first dip, this initial foray to the south, lasts from September 1st to November 20th in 2025. But, and this is crucial, the sources highlight that Pluto will be farthest from the ecliptic, so most extreme in its expression between October 3rd and 18th, that 2-week window in October 2025. That's supposedly the peak intensity.
Yeah.
When the unleashed energy is at its absolute strongest, and yeah, the sheer length of time, a decade, it means the changes aren't just surface level disruption, they're foundational. They alter the landscape.
Wow. A decade with that super intense peak in October 25.
Right.
That is, yeah, a lot to wrap our heads around. And to help us really get what this unleashed Pluto could feel like, our sources give us more than just definitions. They tell this story, almost a parable, called the Out of Bounds Wars. It paints this incredibly vivid picture of what might happen when Pluto breaks free. It's a dramatic way to understand these powerful energies. So the sources set this scene in 2025. They say the star maps trembled. People realized Pluto had drifted way past the ecliptic, a place they emphasize no planet had dared linger in recorded history. Astronomers just called it out of bounds. Simple observation. But the mystics, they called it unleashed, which feels different, like it has its own will now.
Right, and the narrative really dials up that feeling. We meet Archseer Mara up in this orbital citadel above Titan. She reads the patterns and gives this pretty chilling prophecy to the High Council, a 10-year exile, during which Pluto's gravity would bend not just space, but the hidden currents of human will. And her specific warning, I mean, listen to this. Pluto has slipped the leash. What comes is not destiny, it is distortion. The very laws of power will twist.
That's potent stuff. It's saying we're not just looking at evolution, but a fundamental warping of reality, of motivation, where power itself becomes unrecognizable.
Distortion, not destiny. That is stark. Suggests things get fundamentally unpredictable. And at first, this unleashing shows up in weird, subtle ways, like near Charon, Pluto's moon. A mining fleet finds their ship drives are misfiring in strange patterns, as if the ships themselves resisted command. That's more than a glitch. It's like our own tools turning against us. Loss of control. Exactly. And then on Mars, it gets even stranger, according to the narrative. Genetic engineers start seeing spontaneous mutations in their vats. Creatures growing organs with no evolutionary logic, but somehow perfectly adapted. It shows how this unleashed power can create things totally unforeseen. Maybe unsettling, yeah, but functional. Pushing the boundaries of natural or logical. It's like Pluto's regenerative energy, but running wild. Creating new life forms in bizarre ways. Forces you to rethink what life even means.
So the subtle stuff escalates quickly. By October, when Pluto hits that farthest point south, the sources say the universe basically convulsed. Space-time around the planet rippled with obsidian storms. That imagery, it's like reality itself is twisting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the chaos ramps up. Entire star charts became unreliable, which, for anyone navigating space, is... well, an existential nightmare. Total disorientation. Even communications got weird. Transmissions warped, replaying ghost echoes of voices from the past or from futures not yet written. It just blurs everything. Past, future, all jumbled, uncertain. Captain started whispering that Pluto wasn't a planet anymore. It was becoming a threshold, a gateway, not a place, but a passage to something else entirely.
A threshold. Okay, if Pluto becomes a gateway, what does that do to power dynamics? In all this chaos, these two factions emerge, right? Fighting for control. Or maybe just understanding. Tell us about the first one, the consortium.
Right, the consortium, they represent the old guard, you know, clinging to stability. They send out Admiral Sarek and this huge dreadnought, the Acheron, their belief. Order above all else, mission, stabilize the region. And it's that classic human reaction, impose structure on the unknown. But as Sarek's fleet gets closer to Pluto, even their rigid discipline starts cracking. The source says officers experience visions of their own deaths, soldiers rebelled without reason. See, the unleashed energy wasn't just out there, it was getting inside their heads, affecting loyalty will, and this detail is chilling. The Acheron itself, this ship crafted of steel and logic, it seemed to want something, its reactor humming like a beast remembering hunger. It suggests even logic, technology, the tools of order, they can be corrupted or changed by this unbound force.
So the forces trying to maintain order are kind of falling apart from the inside. Then there's the other side, the boundless. These are described as explorers in exile, outcasts, renegades, visionaries. They're drawn towards this unleashed current gathering far below the ecliptic. Like they're intentionally going into Pluto's wild zone. What's their deal?
Their whole philosophy is the flip side of the consortium. They don't see Pluto as a danger, they see it as a teacher. Its chaos isn't destruction to them, it's a crucible, a place of intense transformation. The storms, they're the forge of a new humanity, one unshackled by the ecliptic's order. Right? Forces you to ask, right? Is chaos always bad? Or can it be the catalyst for something radically new, a totally different way of being? For the boundless, yeah, it's a chance to break free from old limits, embrace something more fundamental, more unbound. They represent finding freedom in the breakdown.
And when these two opposites, consortium and boundless, finally clash, it's not your typical battle. The source says it was less of weapons and more of will. How does that show Pluto's unleashed power?
It's described in this really reality-bending way. Shows the raw power of belief when Pluto's energy is in play. Space itself bent to the stronger conviction. Just imagine that. Reality warping based purely on will, not physics as we know it. Ships dissolved into dust with a thought, others multiplied into countless versions of themselves. It's like thought and intention become tangible, powerful forces. And Pluto itself, it's just there in the middle, silent and indifferent, a dark sphere crowned by ribbons of lightning. It's not really doing anything actively, it's just the source, this immense, indifferent power source driving the whole cosmic storm, a primal force just being.
And somewhere in all that, Admiral Sarek has this massive realization. He looks into the abyss and understands. What?
He understands that Pluto was not outside the ecliptic was outside Pluto. That flips everything, doesn't it?
Whoa. Yeah, it completely reverses the perspective. Suggests the ecliptic was just a small part of a much bigger, wilder reality that Pluto was showing them.
Exactly. It's the big aha moment of the whole story. It implies our normal rules are just a limited view, a subset of a larger, untamed truth. What we see as outside or abnormal might actually be the core reality, and our normal is just a confined little zone within that vastness. It's a huge philosophical shift, key to understanding Pluto's unleashed power.
And these out-of-bounds wars, they didn't really end with a winner. The sources say it ended in metamorphosis, so not victory or defeat, but just fundamental change.
Precisely. Everyone who survived, didn't matter if they were military or rebel, they emerged altered, changed. They carried fragments of power they could neither control nor explain. It points to an irreversible shift, a new state of being, maybe. And the impact wasn't just personal, it was systemic, huge. Entire bloodlines would change, civilizations would fracture. The scale is immense. Pluto's unleashed energy doesn't just disrupt, it seems to rewrite the code, genetic, societal. And it leaves this question hanging over everything for the next decade, a question that kind of echoes for us now. What does it mean when the leash breaks? What happens when primal forces are no longer contained?
So let's bring this all together. We went from the technical side of out-of-bounds astrology to this really intense narrative, the out-of-bounds wars. We've seen how Pluto, when it's unleashed, takes its usual themes, power, control, transformation, regeneration, and pushes them into overdrive, into distortion even. It's a powerful story about what happens when the rules break down, when expected paths aren't followed, revealing something deeper, maybe wilder underneath.
Yeah, and if we bring that back to us, to now, it makes you think about unleashed energies in our own lives, right? In our societies. When something breaks free from its usual container, yeah, it can cause chaos, for sure. But maybe also profound change, metamorphosis, the birth of something entirely new. It really raises questions about how we deal with forces that won't stay put. Do we try to force them back into the ecliptic, back into the box? Or do we maybe try to understand the potential in the unbound?
It definitely gives you something to think about. So as you go on with your day, maybe consider this. What established orders, rules, maybe even personal boundaries in your life or in the world, what might be hitting its own ecliptic limit, hinting at a time of unexpected, maybe messy transformation, not just steady progress? What kind of new humanity or just new way of operating might come out of facing those moments when the leash breaks and we have to confront a deeper, untamed reality? We'll leave you chewing on that one.